Doing good.
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 So we have the softer side of South Florida Tribune here, and I am leading the front. Scott is out networking, trying to get us more subscribers, trying to get us listeners, you name it, all that good stuff. So he's out. I'm, I guess, pinch hitting or backup quarterback, whatever sport you like. That's fit six man on the bench coming in, I guess, maybe, or woman coming in on the bench, whatever your take is. Here I am. We have a great show lined up tonight. Welcome, JT.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure
Thank
to be
you.
on.
Pleasure to have you. And welcome back, George.
Good to be on and fire up. Let's have a great show tonight, everyone.
Good. And thanks for coming back, Ralph.
You're welcome. Thank you, Candy. Thank you,
You
guys.
betcha. And then, not last but not least, Smoking Jeremy B.
Good evening, everybody. Let's talk a little sports. I love fire up.
Yeah, let's all get fired up and let's talk. So, our first topic of the night, one that's near and dear to my heart, although maybe not anymore, is the manager's bar was set pretty high this week. There was some shocking news that came out of Chicago on Monday. They fired their coach and they took free agent Craig Counsell away from the Milwaukee Brewers. They dug deep into their pocketbooks, although their pocketbooks are much deeper because we have owners that are billionaires as opposed the Ricketts as opposed to Mark Antanasio, who's only a millionaire. And we're going to give Craig Counsell a $40 million contract for 5 years. Kudos to Craig for getting that, I have to admit. And the next highest paid coach in MLB is $4 million. And then there's 5 or 6 of them that are between that 3 and 4 million mark. Nobody else comes close. So Craig Counsell's setting the bar high. That is what he said all along. I will admit, as much as I am sad to see him go, he said, I'm not going to take a hometown discount because he is from the Milwaukee area. I want managers to get paid more. So he set out to do what he did. Kudos, because let's face it, we're all reminded that even though we as fans or news or media look at it as we're spectators here, this is a business. And I was reminded of that on Monday when Craig Counsell took that. So I'd like to get everybody else's opinion. JT?
I've always been a big fan of Craig Counsell. Actually, I'm a big fan of David Ross. I would love to see the Pirates try to sweep up David Ross, take him instead of Derek Shelton. I think Counsell's done a great job over the years in Milwaukee. He's always kept Milwaukee competitive. They have a decent payroll, but not the highest in the league. So he was getting it done with a little bit above average players. He worked his pitching staff well. I go back to the days he played baseball as well as an Astro, and he's just a hardworking. He's just that kind of guy you'd like to have on your side. He's a plugger, does what he has to do to win. I think the Cubs are on they're starting to get their rebuild going. They had a decent year last year. They're coming back from a couple of really bad down years. I think Counsell's a great fit for them. Money anymore, $8 million is a lot, but anymore, I mean, is it really that big a deal in baseball with the way the money gets thrown around? So I think the Cubs did well. I don't think David Ross will be out there too long.
George, what do you think?
I was a bit surprised. I mean, the biggest surprise to me was, staying within the division. But not only that, but you guys are, rivals, obviously geographic rivals, the Cubs and the Brewers. Craig did a really good job, but obviously the World Series championship was elusive and couldn't deliver on that. That being said, I'm familiar with these kind of moves because the Detroit Tigers back in the day had a steady manager, a nice guy who was respected named Les Moss. But lurking in the background and available was a guy named Sparky Anderson. So the Tigers had a gutsy move to make, and they ended up firing Moss. and hiring Sparky, and you guys know the rest of the story. He delivered a world championship to Detroit in 1984. I am very happy and pleased that the managers are setting the bar higher, like you said, Candy. This is something that has to be done. This is something that lags behind. The Tigers went out and got AJ Hinch when a lot of teams didn't want to talk to him, and I believe he's still a good hire for Detroit. They made steady progress this year, but Craig going to the Cubs, I think this is a tremendous move for him in his career. This is one of the prime opportunities, be the best opportunity, obviously, for him to cash in and make as much money as he can from a standpoint of managing in the big league. So I'm sorry about leaving Milwaukee, but I am happy that he has set the bar higher, like you said, for managers now.
Okay, Ralph, your take.
Well, I'm glad that the Cubs got counsel. And like George says, you got to set the bar high for managers. And it's an interesting situation here with this. And we're going to find out who's going to be the manager at Milwaukee. That's going to be an interesting scenario right there. I'd be interested to find out who that's going to be. But going back to the Cubs, they fired David Ross. Ross wasn't doing too bad. Joe Madden got fired. They've fired a few good managers over the years. The Cubs have. I know they won a World Series. Everybody should. That should be why you're in the game. It's for a World Series. And I agree with JT. They probably should have hired Ross instead of Derek Sheldon. And I do agree with JT on that one. But as far as Craig Counsell goes, it's a good hire. Cubs should do well. We'll see where they go.
Jeremy.
I'm less disappointed in the fact that Counsell went to the Cubs. I'm more disappointed in the Cubs organization because the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, which is the Cubs single A affiliate, has won that division 4 times in the last 10 years under the tutelage of Ryne Sandberg. Why hasn't he been called up to the pros by now? All he does is get these guys ready and advances into the pros. It's a travesty that a Hall of Famer like him in a proven coaching commodity at a lower level hasn't been moved up at all.
That's a good point.
Good point. Good point. One of the points when I was doing research on here about this topic, and I was looking, I'm like, okay, Craig Counsell, $8 million, Dave Roberts, 3.25. But then I went to some of the other sports, and just give you an idea, Nick Saban, college football, 9.1 million. Ed Orgeron, 8.7. Dabo Sweeney, 8.3. You go to the NFL, Bill Belichick, 20 million. Sean Payton, 18 million. Pete Carroll, 15 million. Then you can go to college basketball, Bill Self, Kansas, 13 million. John Calipari, 8.5 million. And Tom Izzo, 6.2 million. Just to give you a rough estimate of kind of some of the other big salaries for coaches or managers out there.
Well, in Candy, you got to also remember Mel Tucker, who was let go by Michigan State. He had that unbelievable contract. And, Mel Farr Jr. came up with a good point, guys. He says, you know what? That loss stings. It stings because Mel Tucker also had set the bar high, especially for African-American coaches. And to see what happened to him is sad, not only from a personal standpoint in his career, but also because he had set that standard high, like Counsell has done now. But Michigan State giving him all that money, and obviously nobody expected to have happen what happened. But we can't forget that huge contract too that Mel Tucker got.
You're right. You're right. I mean, one of the things in Counsell's defense is he said that he needed it was time for a new challenge in his professional career, and that's kind of why he went. And he didn't want to go too far from home because, let's face it, Chicago and Milwaukee are not that far, hour and a half, depending on where you're living. So he didn't want to be too far from his family. He has a son that plays in Michigan, and he has a son that plays in Minnesota. So staying pretty close, and with his Midwestern ties, staying in the Midwest. Are many Milwaukee fans happy about this? we have both sides of the fence. You have ones that are very torn and very upset because he went to a division rival, but then you have some that say he was never able to get us to the World Series. We could never get off that hump and get the playoff wins. So whichever side of the fence you are, you have to be happy for him as a coach or as a manager, because he did what he thought was in best interest for him and his family. And this is a business after all, and that is his job. So,
well, you know
kudos.
something, Candy. Jim
Yeah.
Leland spent many years with the Pirates. Didn't get a chance to go to World Series. Moved on to the Marlins, got a World Series. Went to Detroit, got a World Series. And so
Two.
Craig Counsell, by moving on, could get a World Series here, and we'll see.
He could.
I do have something to add too. It really stings for the Brewers because they lost Mark Canha to the Tigers too this offseason.
There's
Right.
some pitchers we might lose. We might lose a lot more.
Be a lot
What-
of movement. It's GM
what-
meetings right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. What I find interesting is I think what this will do is this will set a division between the big owners that have the big money,
Mm.
and then the smaller markets that don't have the owners that have as deep of pockets. And I think it'll be interesting because I was talking about this on the Chicks show. Like you can look at the NFL, and we all know that the Green Bay Packers is my team, and we've been really good with good quarterbacks for how long? But
33 years.
Yeah.
who do we have as an owner? They're not billionaires. They're the fans. So
Right.
do they make the moves as quickly as some of these billionaire owners who get upset with managers that aren't doing as well and having the success? So I think this will just be interesting on how this keeps going in the industry, where you have these billionaires that may have as much money, and then you have the smaller markets that don't have quite the same money. How much of a division will there be? Or will it just be, let's face it, you got to be lucky too sometimes to get where you are. Look at Arizona. Arizona this year, yes, they didn't make
Oh
it
my
all the way.
God.
You know,
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Cardinals. I was like, what?
No.
D-backs.
Yeah, Jeremy. The Cardinals are having a little bit of a tough time this year with Jonathan Gannon as their coach. So
Man, that supposedly the fire up speech he gave prior to the season. I think I got an aneurysm trying to decipher it to see if it was actually supposed to motivate him or demotivate that team. It was bad.
yeah,
He looks like Murph from the Impractical Jokers. That's all. I can't even look at it. I can't even look at the guy. So.
I like that, JT. That's a good one.
That is. So since we're going to switch now from MLB and let's switch over to NFL. Let's talk about the Rams, and Carson Wentz finds himself another new home.
Team number 3.
Jeremy, let's talk about Carson Wentz.
The biggest question mark that I have is how long will Stafford be out with that broken thumb on his throwing hand? Because that is why they had to do it. Because let's face it, Brett Ripien, it looked like Justin Fields versus the Packers. He was awful. I'm not trying to be mean to Justin Fields, but you only put up 3 points with that offense with Puka Nacua playing and Cooper Kupp playing. They had 2 catches each for under 50 yards each. That's a travesty to have that type of talent in the wide receiver room and get that low of production. Think about it. Even as bad as the Lions played versus the Ravens, they had more offensive production than that.
I agree. Ralph.
You know what? Carson Wentz going to the Rams. We're going to see what happens with that. That's going to be an interesting scenario there. Question is, can he resurrect himself? I mean, he was with 2 teams and didn't do well with either one of them. Or I'm sorry, 3. This is his 4th team. I'm sorry, he was with Philly. So we're going to find out. I mean, is Carson Wentz going to be one of these kind of guys that just goes everywhere around the whole entire NFL, and he'll end up playing for 10 teams before he finally makes something out of himself? It's going to be pretty sad to see that. They call him journeyman, and I hope he doesn't become a severe journeyman. But it can hurt the Rams to have at least a quarterback with some kind of experience that can really come in and play. And Carson Wentz right now is what they have. And he was available. So they scooped him up, which was great. Good. I mean, good for them. Question is, how good can he play with that offense there? We'll see.
George.
Well, the Rams have dug themselves such a big hole. Let's just be honest here.
Yes.
I mean, and Matthew Stafford is playing hurt. He has had different injuries. I know going back to last season, he's a tough competitor, as Jeremy and I know, watching him perform here in Detroit for all those years as a Detroit Lion. This guy, is still a tremendous quarterback, but you're right. I mean, we have no idea. This is like a wild card. And Ralph, like you said, journeyman quarterbacks, they seem to bounce around and bounce around. They're always in demand, obviously in emergency situations.
Right.
But to succeed as an emergency or backup, whatever you want to call them, is always a tough
Yes.
nut to crack. And the Rams are obviously desperate right now. I mean, if they even have any faint hopes of trying to get a wild card, I mean, they got to start winning. And it's a tough situation, especially, how far they've fallen since the Super Bowl is really sad. But I'm enough, I'm smart enough to know, and the Detroit Lions are smart enough to know that the Lions look really good in that trade, obviously. I mean, you never wish bad luck on anybody, but I tell you what, Carson Wentz is going to have his work cut out for him. There's a lot of problems over there, both offensively and defensively. And Jeremy, you're right. I mean, you got guys back in the lineup, and you still can't complete more than a couple of passes to each one of them. And it really it just doesn't look good there. But again, let's give Carson the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what he can do, what he's got left in the tank, as the saying goes.
JT, your take.
My take is Carson Wentz in 2021, which is just 2 years ago, threw 27 touchdowns with 7 interceptions for the Colts. If you look over his numbers in his career, he's only really had 2 or 3 seasons where his interceptions were close to his touchdown numbers. Do I think it's a good move? I think the Rams are 3-6 for a reason. I think their defense is getting older. I even think Aaron Donald's not the Aaron Donald we're accustomed to. They're getting older on defense. The offense, I think, I can't see Carson Wentz being that type of quarterback that can. They need a guy with a quick release, because you're going to be throwing a lot of short passes. I mean, that's what Cooper Kupp and Nakua are. They're like the old school Patriots kind of offense, where they run 5-6 yard routes, catch the ball, and just destroy you the whole way down the field like that. I don't know if Wentz is that type of quarterback. He's a little bit more methodical, a little bit slower. I can't see him getting the release out as quick as like Matthew Stafford learned to do when he came over. Let's face it, too. The Lions did win that trade, but the Rams got what they wanted in that trade. They won a Super Bowl. So I think it worked out both ways. I think the Rams are going to be a team that picks in the top 5 next year, and it may be time for them to look for the new quarterback of the future.
Yeah, the mistake, guys, that the Rams made over the many years, like George says, they got egg on their face, because what happened was they didn't even have a draft. I mean, Sean McVay went with free agents for what, 2, maybe 3 years. Finally had a draft this last draft. I mean, at least 1 or 2 picks before that, but still, I don't think he's even had a full draft. So when you can't draft and you don't have anything to look forward to behind you in depth or anything, forget it.
Yes. The one thing I will say is we have talked numerous times on different shows about how important the preseason is, so you have time to gel and to work with your receivers and get up to. So Carson Wentz coming in now, granted, it's a tall order, because he hasn't worked with that offensive line. He hasn't worked with these coaches. He hasn't worked in this scheme. He hasn't worked with the wide receivers. And we all talk about how people need to gel, and they need to be able to, unless you're an elite quarterback, I think you need time to gel.
Well,
And a lot of us have learned the hard way with some of our teams that it takes time. Even like Jared Goff, his first year with you guys, it wasn't lights out. He's progressing nicely and getting better, and the team is playing better, and they're surrounding him with better players. I also think, especially an older quarterback like Carson, who doesn't move around a lot, he has to have a really good offensive line. And if the offensive line isn't giving you time, it doesn't matter unless, like I said, unless you're an elite and you can run around and get around a lot, you're going to have problems. So I think, as much as I'd like to see him succeed, and I think he'll do okay, he's going to have a tough time, I think, personally.
Let's not forget too, his personality might not be a good match with this team. He's had some problems in the locker rooms in the past with Philly. When he left Washington, a couple of the players bashed him right away. So I mean, he might not be. If he comes in there and they start to really lose, it might just blow up, and it just might be a total free for all for the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, good point.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
point,
Yeah,
JP.
it is a good
I'll
one,
say it
JP,
again.
you're right.
There's two teams that should have signed a free agent quarterback, and Carson Wentz wasn't the one. It was either the Jets or the Rams, and it should have been Colt McCoy.
I like
Yeah,
that.
he's stuck down in Arizona, I think, or did he get cut?
No, he's a free agent right now.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
a
he
free
got-
agent.
He
Okay.
got cut this offseason. And
Yeah.
speaking of Arizona, what the hell
Oh.
are they doing trading Josh Jobs and leaving it to be Kyler Murray as a starter when Modern Warfare just got released? He won't open the playbook with a new coach.
But Candy's right, though, about somebody like Carson Wentz. You got to have some time to understand your players. But Josh Dobbs went into Minnesota, and he managed to have a win. And he said he didn't know the players' names, didn't know anybody from a can of paint. And he
didn't
ended
know
up,
the playbook.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he
did
is a smart
backyard
guy.
football.
He's got several engineering degrees.
We just talked about him on a previous show, Pundits
Yeah.
Pundit, and we were talking about how he graduated from Tennessee with an aerospace engineering degree, perfect grades. So
Yeah,
he is really brilliant. Sorry, go
Smarter
ahead,
than
Jeremy.
me.
one of my guests that I've had on from another podcast, he calls him the Pastronaut.
Mhm.
Oh, that's pretty good.
What? No, that's good. Astronaut pass.
I
Yeah.
like
Because he's a QB that has an nautical degree.
it. Not bad. Not bad.
And he was drafted in 2017. He's been around 8 different teams, I think we were talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what a story. What a story. And
He's had positive moments everywhere he's went. Even in Pittsburgh, there was a game or two where he came in and did what he had to do when Ben went down for a quarter or something. So I like the guy. I actually think that he could be. Minnesota could be a team that gets into the playoffs with the receivers they got, especially with Jefferson coming back. I don't think they're going to lose a lot on They're not going to lose. They're going to lose something from Dobbs to Cousins, of course. But I think that Dobbs could hold the ship and they can win some games.
Yeah, he looked good this first game.
I mean,
He's looked good everywhere he's played.
Right.
Other than the few times, like JT said, he played in Pittsburgh, he was okay. I mean, I just wish that, he could have done more here in Pittsburgh, but, when you have a franchise quarterback.
He won't hurt you. He won't hurt you. He's better than Trent Dilfer. I'm going to compare him to Trent Dilfer, but he's a guy that won't turn the ball. He won't make stupid plays. So he'll at least keep you in the game. And they got a decent run game there with Madison. He's starting to come along. And I sort of like the Vikings. I think the Lions are the team in that division by far, but I think the Vikings do have a chance to sneak in the NFC because I think a lot of the teams like the Rams and the teams in the NFC West aren't as good as we thought they would be.
All right, let's get back to the subjects here, Sandy.
Okay. How long do we think Stafford's going to be out?
If they're bringing somebody in, it's a minimum of 4 weeks.
Yeah, at least 4. At least 4. I mean, that's obviously you can't throw the ball. I mean, you got a finger that's broken or fractured.
Yeah, on your throwing hand, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And they tried to downplay that injury last week. Remember, up until Friday, he's been limited in practice and still throwing the ball. He might play. That was to keep Vegas from swaying the numbers the other way. They wanted everybody to bet on the Rams.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a long time. Like Jeremy said, you don't, and JT, you know, Candy, I think that he obviously loves to get back in there. I mean, we know that from Detroit days. He is not happy not being a starter,
No.
being out of the field.
No,
But
he's a gamer.
you still got to let things heal.
Look at what was that 2019 when he had the microfracture of his back, and they
Yeah,
put him on the season-ending IR, and he still got, even though he wasn't able to play, he was dressed on the sidelines the last 3 games. He was
Yeah.
like, it was like, come on, let me be an emergency activation because somebody gets hurt, something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift focus
Yep.
to Martavius Bryant.
Ugh.
5-year suspension, now back with the Cowboys. Let's start with Ralph. Let's start with you.
Oh my, he's back, huh? I can't wait to see this. An interesting thing is with the perfect team, the Dallas Cowboys. Let him stay down there, you know. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. We'll see how far he goes, or how far he stretches it before he gets in trouble again, or something to that effect.
Okay, George, your take on Martavius Bryant.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if he can keep his house in order, obviously that was a huge loss losing to the Eagles the other day. And Dallas is now sitting at 5-3, and you know, one person doesn't make a team. We all know that, and obviously they need some help. The Cowboys they're just not, they're sputtering. They play good one game, next game so. You know, I think he can help them. I really do. Now, can he turn the team around to go on a long winning streak? I find that unlikely, but you never know. But I mean, the fact that he's coming back in a time when they really need help, I think should bode well. But let's take a look. Let's take a wait and see on that. But I think it should help the team, the Cowboys.
JT.
I think we should start a reality show and have Martavis Bryant and Josh Gordon just sit in a room for as long as they can until one of the two get in trouble, because it's getting old. It's he just played in the XFL. He played 8 games and he put up 14 catches for 154 yards, didn't score a touchdown. That was in the XFL. I don't think he adds much. If he didn't go to Dallas, he had to go to Las Vegas, because there are only 2 teams that every year just keep signing these players and try to make right out of them. But I think the guy's past his prime. Of course, I think if he can add anything, it's going to be a 4th or a 5th receiver, and you always got to worry about the attitude. I think this is just it's a bonehead play. There's a lot of different free agent wide receivers out there that could have come in, or could grab somebody off someone's practice squad.
Jeremy.
He's 31 years old. Let's look at it this way. Josh Gordon, even though he missed 2.5 seasons due to his suspensions, he at least still had wheels. He just didn't have hands anymore because he didn't get to practice his craft. We're talking about a guy that hasn't played in 5 years. 2 of those years were 16 game seasons, which is 32 games right there. 3 of them were 17 game seasons, which is another 91. He hasn't played in 133 games. His hands are going to be like Will Harris's.
Mm-hmm.
I just I just think there's enough players out there. I was watching the Bears game tonight, and Carolina just signed somebody off of a practice squad, and he had a 30-yard catch. There's enough players out there that Dallas could have, if they needed depth, they could have got somebody with less baggage. But it's
I agree with JT on that one. Yes.
It's Dallas and Las Vegas's way, though. They just love giving these guys extra chances.
Kind of reminds you of when Russell Wilson had his last year in Seattle and they signed Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I'm in a minority here, Candy. I'm the only one that's welcoming the guy back, but
that's why I was laughing too, George. Yeah.
More power to him. If he comes back and puts up numbers, good for him. But I just
if he gets 3 catches for 30 yards a game, it's a win for him.
Oh, definitely, it's a win. That's
yeah.
because he's going to be
Sure.
the wide receiver 4 or 5 on that depth chart.
He can
Yeah.
put up
Not
three-
superseding CD Lamb, that's for sure, or Michael Gallup.
Right.
No. Or Brandon
he-
Cooks.
Did they even say how much they're paying him? I mean, they probably got him
They
pretty
were for-
cheap.
No,
It has
they
to be.
actually didn't. They paid him good. I couldn't believe it. They
Oh,
gave him 5 years and like 38 million, with some of it guaranteed.
Wow.
With
Wow.
Bryant. They gave
For
Bryant
Martavius
38.
Bryant. They gave him 38 million in a 5-year contract.
Are you sure about that? He's 31 years old. That's insane.
I know, I know. But he's had no mileage since he was 26.
Oh,
I guess that's what they're banking on.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Wow, that's crazy.
they're going to eat that.
You just had to check it, didn't you?
They're going to eat it. I mean, that's too much for him.
You know,
Actually, he got a 1 year, 289,000.
somebody said he
I
got
was
a
gonna
huge
say,
5-year
He's
deal.
probably making league minimum.
He got 1 year, 289. I just
Yeah.
looked it up.
Okay.
He
Good.
got the league. I was gonna say if they gave
Thank
him
God,
5
because
years,
I thought
They gave him that kind of money, man.
they posted he got a bag, you know, and they were throwing out all these crazy years and numbers, and I was like, "Who is he?" I mean, all I know him for is illegal substances.
Yeah, I mean, he showed his true skill his rookie year at Pittsburgh. I mean, he was
Oh,
that
yeah,
new
I mean-
receiver. We went through like that whole
Yes.
stretch of receivers like Mike Wallace, him. And I think we're getting that now with George Pickens again. We're going to go through that diva receiver that's just going to run himself out of time, which is getting old in Pittsburgh, but seems
Yeah,
like it's part of
JT.
the thing.
Smoking Jim and I agree on the same thing, that he won't, after his rookie contract, I don't think he'll be a Steeler.
No, he's just they've been burned too many times by this. They can't do it anymore.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this weekend, I have to say there is a football game where my team goes after Mr. Ralph Williams' team.
And JT's too.
Yeah,
JT's too. Oh, my goodness.
You're
You're
got
out.
two Pittsburgh guys here.
You're out. Wait a minute. You got NFC North heated rivals, and then the team you're playing against, you're outnumbered 4-1.
That's
I
right.
am. Yes,
Yeah.
in more ways than one, female to male too. But hey,
I wasn't even going there. I was trying to be nice and
that's okay.
semi-politically correct.
That's okay. It is what it is. So, George, what's your take on Packers at Steelers?
Oh my. Oh my. I think that's going to be a good game. I really do. I'm looking for Pittsburgh to win though. I think that they're playing a little bit better ball right now, and obviously both teams have had their share of losses, but I would definitely put some house money on Pittsburgh. Yeah.
You would, huh? Okay.
Tomlin's
Thanks,
a good
George.
coach. I love Tomlin. I know
Okay.
sometimes Ralph the city doesn't like him anymore, but
Pittsburgh don't like him.
he's done a good job.
No, he has.
He has, yes.
It's going to be a good game, though. I mean, God, that's two historic franchises, no question about it. Steelers and Packers.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy, your take.
Well, the one thing that the Packers do well, the Steelers are not doing well on the other side of the ball with it, and that is passing defense. Right now, the Packers have the 8th passing defense, and the Steelers are nowhere near 8th in the NFL in passing. So I don't see the passing game beating them. But where they can get beat is their bottom 10 still at rushing defense. Yes, they had a great performance against the Rams, but ever since they traded away Cam Akers, the Rams don't run the ball anyways. So that's a whole nother story. And that's one thing the Steelers defense is good at. That D-line and those front 4 linebackers are very good at getting after running backs. And then, of course, you got TJ Watt and you got Cam on the line, and those guys are beasts. And you guys got line issues. So I think it's a race to 17. I think it's a low-scoring game because neither offense is high potent. So I think it's a race to 17, and I got the Pittsburgh Steelers winning 17-10.
Okay, Mr. Ralph.
Okay, thank you, Candy. I think that every win this year, and I think JT will agree with me, that the Steelers are going to have is going to be a dogfight because that's the way it's been all season. I don't see the Steelers winning by a big chunk. They haven't yet this year, and we got to see what fourth quarter Kenny's going to do. And so what I'm thinking is I'm looking at 20-10, maybe 20-13, something like that. That's what I'm looking at.
Who you got winning?
Steelers.
Oh, but you said they don't win big. That's why I stuck with my
No,
prediction.
they don't win big, but they win. And I've said this many times about the Steelers. It's better to be lucky than good because they're not good, but they're lucky. So, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
JT.
I think you both hit it on the head when you talked about the offensive line for Green Bay being a little bit rough, and you got T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and you got Highsmith that are gonna put up some pressure all day long. I think Jordan Love's gonna be a little rattled. But the one thing about Pittsburgh is, and Ralph, you know this as well. If the Steelers are supposed to win, they don't always beat the teams they should beat. I mean, we got destroyed by the Texans. Each year we always seem to lose to the Jets or the Raiders. We always lose games that we shouldn't, but it's a home game. I think that's going to help us out. I think that I think 24-20. I think that I think Pickett's starting to come around a little bit. I think that I wish we had Freiermuth. I think once we get Freiermuth back, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable with our offense. But I think 24-20, I can't give the Steelers more than a 7-point win, so I'm going to go 4.
I think it comes down to how healthy Aaron Jones is, because I honestly think if Aaron Jones is healthy, because he's listed as questionable, he's had this hamstring issue. I think if he gets past that, I think we have more of a chance, because that allows us to open up the game and let me say this. I hope not only is he healthy, but I hope we actually use him as we used to use him, because I think in the games that we've had him in, we have not used him to his potential. I think we haven't been healthy for most of the year. We've been without Christian Watson or Aaron Jones or both. And I think if we have both of them in there, that it'll be a little bit different of a game. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a battle. I do think that they had a good win, whether I understand all of you talking about how bad the Rams are and everything like that. But I think for confidence wise, for Jordan Love and everything like that, that they needed that. And I think that might help propel them. I think it'll be a close game. It is tough because it is in Pittsburgh. So I think that typically would favor you guys. I think it's going to be a close game, but I got to go with my hometown team. And I'm going to say 2017 Packers, because the Packers have been playing really well in the fourth quarter. And I think that's when it might come down to, if it's a tight game between the two teams, that it's the team that has the ball last, and maybe it'll be the Packers.
That's Kenny Pickett's best quarter as well, though. So just to let you know, that is his
fourth quarter. Kenny,
his first 2 quarters, he's basically non-existent. So I wouldn't be shocked if the game. I wouldn't be shocked if the game 6-3 going into halftime. I think it's gonna be a real slow starting game. So.
Jordan Love's kind of the same quarterback. First and second quarter, he does nothing, and then he starts gradually getting better from the third quarter on.
That's exactly Kenny Pickett.
But if he gets rattled, as we've seen, and Candy, I hate to bring up some PTSD for your Packers, but you start getting pressure in the third quarter and he crumbles. That's what I've seen. It's no knock on him. He's technically, it may be his 4th year in the league, but it's his first year as a starter. He's a rookie.
Yeah, he's still a rookie because he had to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. Just like I feel bad for Mason Rudolph. How many years he sat behind Roethlisberger and he's still sitting behind people.
All 3 of the quarterbacks you said, their first year in the NFL with this team did not do well. Favre stunk it up his first year with the Packers. Rodgers was pitiful his first year with the Packers. And Love's had good moments and horrible moments. There is no in between with them. He doesn't have that consistency yet. That's built up with time. That's usually a second or third year quarterback that gets into that fruition. Unfortunately, there's that other team that's in the NFC North in Chicago, which that that guy, he never gets consistent from one game to the next.
That's
And
true.
and I always tell people in Pittsburgh that get on Kenny Pickett, and I understand why they're getting on him, but if you look at Kenny Pickett's first 25, 30 games in the NFL and compare it to Trevor Lawrence, they're basically almost spitting image stats of each other. I know Trevor Lawrence is much higher of a ceiling, but that just goes to show you that it takes quarterbacks time in this league. I mean, there's not every quarterback does what CJ Stroud's doing this year. You're seeing the opposite with Bryce Young. You're just seeing some quarterbacks get it right away. I mean, Brock Purdy got it right away, which was crazy, but he got it. And some quarterbacks don't get it. It takes them a year or two to get it. And
I think it also depends on the surrounding cast and the
Yeah.
wide receivers you have.
Yeah.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I'm sorry, but if you put Christian McCaffrey with Jordan Love, and I think Jordan Love would be a different person.
Yeah.
I think that makes
That's
a big
why
difference.
Brock Purdy was so successful, Candy, because he has a good supporting cast. And
Right.
that's exactly what you need. And NFL speed, the college speed of the game, is a whole different animal. And, you know, when you're in the NFL, the speed of the game is way different. You have to really get into the flow of the speed of the game.
It's a
I
big
agree.
change. You're right.
Yes.
It's a big change from the college game. No question.
It is. And I think going up against, like I know I keep harping on this, but Green Bay is one of the youngest teams in the league. And their wide receivers, I mean, they're maybe second year at best. And we don't have the veterans because a lot of the veterans went with Mr. Rogers over to the Jets, or they left us. So I think that matters too, because I think when the defenses have been in sync for how long, they're going to come after, and they know what to come after. I think more so than, a veteran wide receiver, when he sees his quarterback in trouble, he knows what to do. Come back to, they're in
Make
sync.
adjustments. Yes.
They make more adjustments on the playing field. And I think some of these young quarterbacks aren't doing that, or don't even have, I don't want to say they're not smart enough to, but they're not in sync with their receivers to do that. And I think that's coming out loud and clear this year.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the best thing a young quarterback in the NFL has is a good tight end. I firmly believe this.
Yes.
I think Kittle did a lot for Purdy last year. I think Evan Ingram in Jacksonville now is putting up nice numbers with Trevor Lawrence. I think you need that like safety blanket, and I think that Pickett don't have that right now with Freiermuth. I know Green Bay did a good job. I like Musgrave. I like the tight end.
Yeah. Well, what about Detroit with Goff and Laporta?
That's another one. I mean, you need that. You need a good, in today's day and age, you need a tight end that's going to be your safety over the middle that you can throw to, and I think that once Green Bay gets that going, and don't let's not lie. I mean, the last 4 years, the joke of every NFL draft was Green Bay never taking a wide receiver, and it caught up to you. I mean,
it did.
But I mean, I like Watson. I think that I think it's going to be different going forward. I think the mindset was you had Aaron Rodgers, give him a Randall Cobb, he'll do good, and they did. But I mean, I think now with a younger quarterback, I think you'll start to build a better receiving core for him.
It just takes time, I think. Yep, I agree. Anybody want to do a parting shot? Jeremy?
I said it here last year around Thanksgiving. Or no, I mean, just after the draft, when we did our little draft review, and I talked about our UDFAs. And who was my first UDFA profile this season? Trevor Nowaski, the GLIAC Defensive Player of the Year in Division II college football, right in Saginaw Valley State, a graduate of West Canton High School just outside of Detroit, gets called up to the active roster to the team he followed his entire childhood. I think it's great for him. He's got size, he's got speed, he can cover the tight end, which is something our linebackers have been struggling with. So you may see him in some passing downs, but more importantly, with Cabinda being out and not being able to play fullback in special teams, and Rodrigo just being transferred to that position of fullback while Cabinda's hurt, it makes sense to use him more in special teams where he showed out in the preseason in week 2 and week 3.
Ralph, do you have a parting shot?
Yeah, I do. All I want to say is good luck to Martavius Bryant. We'll see where he goes. We'll see what he does, and that's all I can say. I mean, but I do have one thing. Hope he stays away from that stuff. That's
I
it.
thought it
That's
was
my
nose
parting
candy
shot.
with him.
George, you have a parting
Well,
shot?
my parting shot is welcome to Detroit. The Tigers announced today that the Chicago White Sox announcer Jason Benetti is moving to Motown. He's going to do a minimum of 127 games, play-by-play voice of the Detroit Tigers. This man is an incredible story, battling cerebral palsy all these years, living a dream of being a broadcaster, and then obviously a play-by-play man in Major League Baseball. He's certainly one of the top voices in sports, and the Tigers made a great decision today, bringing a veteran broadcaster in to succeed Matt Shepard on their television side. Jason is a wonderful story, and like I said, he's got a great voice, and he knows baseball. He loves baseball. He's been obviously a lifelong follower of the White Sox, but get ready, Tigers, because you got a good one. I'm glad they hired him. Welcome to Detroit.
There you go. JT, do you have a parting shot tonight?
First off, I want to say thank you guys for letting me join today. It was awesome tonight, and I'm going to stick with Detroit, but I'm going to go with Michigan. Michigan ran for 418 yards last year against Penn State, and Penn State, they're going up against the same two running backs and against maybe a better offensive line this year with Michigan. So look for Michigan to run for about 350 yards and McCarthy to throw all day, and look for Michigan to cement their undefeated record with a big win this weekend against Penn State.
It's funny you bring up Michigan, because the report came out that the NCAA is going to do nothing but hit them with a fine for the sign sealing stuff.
What did
Why?
I tell you?
They're
Nothing.
independent. Their independent investigators found out that Rutgers, Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana, and
Wake
Purdue,
Forest, I think Wake Forest too was.
and Wake. No,
yeah.
I'm talking about just in the Big Ten.
Oh, okay.
And Purdue, all were stealing signs from Michigan.
Jeez.
And then put it out to make it even worse. Ohio State and Rutgers sold the signs they stole to Purdue
Oh man.
for the
And
Big
Purdue
Ten
still got
championship,
crushed.
and Purdue still couldn't win, knowing what the signs were. For shame, shame, shame.
Jeez.
That's breaking news from Jeremy. I love it.
Well, you know what,
Is it-
Jeremy? Thank you, because guess what? I just got something for my bum show tomorrow, my external bum show in the morning, which JT will be a part of.
Yeah, I'll
And
be
so
there.
Scott.
Tim Petiti from
So-
the Big Ten came on to the ticket the other night and said more than likely there'll be nothing because we can't find anything more than what every other team in the Big Ten does already.
So my parting shot. I don't know if any of you are or not, but my parting shot is just to say thank you to all the veterans out there.
Yes,
Saturday is
Veterans
Veterans Day,
absolutely.
and we owe them everything.
Yes.
And so I just want to say thank you to anybody that is a veteran or that even has military in their family, because I do know the sacrifices that the family goes through as well. So thank you
Call. Good call.
to all the veterans.
Happy Veterans Day. Yep.
Happy Veterans Day. We celebrate you that day.
4 generations straight in my family has served in the military.
Yeah, my dad served 2 tours in Vietnam.
And my dad
So
was
did
in
mine.
Vietnam too.
Nice.
My
nice.
dad was in Germany. My brother-in-law John was in Germany, and my godson Nathan was in the Pacific region in the Navy.
I have 2 uncles. They both were in Vietnam. And then I had a friend of mine who actually was killed in Afghanistan
Oh,
during the Desert Storm. So I do near and dear. Taps. Whenever I hear taps, it's it's near and dear to my heart. So,
Yeah.
but for years I worked in a VA hospital. I worked in a credit union inside the hospital, and so veterans are near and dear to my heart. They have such stories. They sacrificed everything for all of us.
Where
now
does
a roofing company today for Veterans Day gave a veteran a free roof on his
That's
house.
awesome.
Yes,
That
a roofing company here did
That's
that.
great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
that is
Yes,
great. My
yes.
grandfather was a frogman back before they had the Navy SEAls. That's what they were called. They were the frogmen.
Yeah, I remember
And
that term.
he served not only in the European field of war. He came back home on leave, married my grandma, and got called back out to the Pacific realm of war.
Wow.
He was at Normandy. He stormed the beaches. He was the one that set up the little blinking beachhead so they knew where to land the craft to drop off the troops on the shores. So he was there 24 hours before any of the troops were there setting that
Wow.
up. So he had to hide in that sand. He was actually in Sicily. He had, he was an amazing man, and I loved listening to the stories growing up. But the scariest one he told me is that his day off while he was in the Pacific, he was on the battleship that was 7 miles from Hiroshima and 9 miles from Nagasaki.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's close.
And because
Yes,
he was
very
off duty
close.
that day, he was underneath. So him and about 300 guys actually lived 20 years longer than everybody else off that boat.
Oh my.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
Great. Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a good show. Normally, Scott is in this seat. Scott wrote a book. It's going to be on Amazon very shortly here. You'll have to go out and buy it.
I can't
But
wait to get it.
I can't wait for all of you to read it either.
Actually, Candy, he gave me the inspiration. I'm going to write a book, The Old Boys Gang, in radio in this town. The Old Boys Gang.
Good for you. Good for
Nice.
you.
I'm thinking about it seriously.
There's
And
a
I'm running
little
for
red-
politics too.
There we go. There's a little red subscribe button. It's down by Ralph there. Hit it, like us, share us. Tell all your friends about it. We have numerous shows on our platform here on the South Florida Tribune. We have Pundits Pundit. We have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We have Inside the Pigskin. We have Fire Up. We sometimes do Fire Up Wisconsin, Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up Florida. We have No Limits. We have, oh my goodness, we have lots. We have Motor City Mad Mouse show that just debuted
Yes.
a week ago. But go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. If you like to listen to audio versions, go to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Listen to our shows. If you like this show, comment. If you want to be a guest, comment or email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. We would love to have you. Guys, it's been great. I'm going to let you all go around the horn and tell us how that people can get a hold of you. We're going to start, Jeremy.
Oh, okay. Yes, I also write for the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune heading underneath great authors such as Scott Morganroth and George Eichhorn. I write mostly about the NFL and the Detroit Lions. I also have my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I do a 2 general shows with fans. I do the NFL Roundtable Talks, where we cover the 3 biggest NFL news of the week on Wednesdays, and we also do the weekly pick'ems, picking the winners of every game. I also do the Lions Fan Cave Chat, which rolls into a pregame show for the weekend, unless it's on Wednesday or a Thursday night game, then it goes on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. And my post-game shows are Mondays, where I go over the hot players, the cold players, and the key stats and key plays of the game. That being said, I am here whenever Scott wants me, but mostly on Fire Up right here on Thursdays. Whether it's Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up Wisconsin, it could be Fire Up Florida. I don't care.
Ralph, how can people find you?
Ralph Williams 737 at gmail.com, www.rwmedia.org. I have my own YouTube channel, and you can catch me on LinkedIn, Twitter X platform, and on Facebook as well. And Tuesday nights, Beaver County Radio with me, Ralph Williams, smoking Jim Frazier. And we're on also live on Beaver County Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and on their website as well. Starting in January 2nd, Sports Corner goes 2 hours, and we're having the Year in Sports Review Spectacular. So that'll be on Beaver County Radio.
Nice. George, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, I write for a publication that I think Jeremy writes for too. The South Florida Tribune
Tribune.
and the Motor City Tribune. And at the end of my column, you'll always see a link to my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. I can't wait to see and read Scott's book. My book's been out a little bit longer, but hey, it's still available, and great announcers. We talk about Ernie Harwell, Ray Lane, and Van Patrick, and Bud Lynch, and Bruce Martin, and George Blaha, and on and on and on. So you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and also at LinkedIn under my name. And on Twitter, I am at SandGSports99. And you can find me on many of these shows here. We had a great time tonight, guys. Great being with all of you on this one.
Great.
JT, how can people get a hold of you?
Get on our website, www.draft412.com. I'm the editor-in-chief. We have NFL draft profiles right now, over about 150 of them on there. Go on there, look at a player, see what where we have him going in the draft right now. We keep updating it. We do NHL, we do NBA, we do MLB as well. So you can get on there, look at the draft prospects. You can get a hold of me at jt@draft412.com. We have books on Amazon. We do draft guides every year, so you can look at our NFL draft guide from last year. We have a Major League Baseball and a hockey we did together, and then we're going to be adding basketball as we continue to grow. We got we just launched Draft Carolina in the Carolinas, so that's another state, and then we got Draft 317 coming on board, which is Indianapolis. So as we grow, just get on the site, get on draft412.com, and read what you want, see what you want to do on the draft. And I thank you guys for having me on tonight. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you guys. This has been an absolute pleasure. I would hope everybody that's watching and listening would go check out all of these guys on all of their shows, their YouTube channels, their websites. Check them all out. And again, that red subscribe button, watch more of our shows. As I was listening out the shows, I'm like, and I was listening to you guys, I'm like, wait a minute. I missed one of our big flagship shows, our Sports Exchange, which is always on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. as well. But I'm sitting in for Scott Morganroth, a Motor City Madmouth, who wrote the book. You can see the cover up by George there. It's Lessons from the Microphone. Comes out on Amazon very shortly and on Kindle. But for Scott Morganroth, for JT, for George, for Ralph, and Jeremy, we want to thank you all for joining us on this episode. We hope you enjoyed, and catch us the next time.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Have a great one. Thank you, guys.
Happy veterans.